You're not born an Olympian. Well, I was not a natural when I started fencing. The story of my career has been hard work. Through working really hard over the course of years and years and years of practice, start to become a top international fencer and ultimately make it to the Olympic Games and win a medal. I watched what the best were doing, and I studied them, and I experimented, and I tried things, and I failed, and I succeeded. But I saw how many people were afraid to try, how many people dropped out, and just being able to hang in and learn through that process was what made a huge difference. It's about hard work all the time. So anything that saves me time is very valuable. Bank and Chase fits into my life perfectly. It just makes everything so easy for me. I can pop into an ATM almost anywhere in the city if I need to use it. Chase just lets me focus on what's important in my life. I think there's always this process going on, trying to see if I can do something a little bit better. And that process never stops when you're trying to be good at something. When I started, no one ever thought I'd become a world-class fencer. But I didn't give up, and I accomplished more than anyone thought was possible.
Thank you. That was very much like you, Tim. Just
to give my phone to someone.
Yeah, no, everywhere we go, though, you know everyone. I never know where I'm going to see you, but wherever I see you, you end up knowing a lot of people.
Thank you. By the way, I want to thank Sarah for doing this. She stepped in last minute. You also can thank Billie Jean King, because Sarah's on the board of Women's Sports Foundation, and she had to ask Billie Jean King's permission, which was just cool, and she said, yes, come down and interview Tim. So thank you, Sarah, for being here, and we've been good friends, so thank you to her for being here today.
Thank you. I do. I joined the Board of Trustees for the Women's Sports Foundation in February, and when I told Billie Jean what I was coming for, and I was like, well, that Chase commercial with Serena Williams, and, Chase has the Chase Review at the U.S. Open for all of you who watch.
And that fencer guy who you don't know his name, but.
Well, she liked the Chase Review because, the close line calls, you can tell. And she says, yes, I know him, and here I am.
There you go. Awesome.
What was it like when that commercial's amazing. Everyone sees it all the time. I was watching the Tonys on Sunday, and there's Tim. How did they approach you?
So first of all, if you know anything about fencing, you know that, well, even if you don't know anything about fencing, we don't normally end up in commercials on TV. It was one of those things that just really came together. They approached and said, hey, would you like to be in a commercial? There's a couple of big people in it. They mentioned Serena Williams and Rockettes. I tried not to scream. I said, yeah, sure, I think I can do that. So it's been really amazing, and I think for the sport, it's been really tremendous, because there are a lot of people in the country who don't even know what fencing is, and now they're seeing fencing running in prime time. It feels like almost every day. So it's been really great for the foundation and for just raising awareness for what I think is a great sport.
We didn't really do a proper introduction for Tim, but I think that the commercial explained a lot of it. You are a two-time Olympic fencer, but you didn't really have a traditional trajectory, I guess, in fencing. How did you start?
So I tell the story a lot, but I saw a sign that said, join the fencing team, get out of PE at my school when I was 13. It was actually hanging, I never tell this part, it was actually hanging in the bathroom. It was sort of a faithful trip to the bathroom that day when I was 13 in school. And without even knowing what it was, I went and saw that it was sword fighting. And I was really a kid who really struggled in school. I was kind of a kid who was picked on a lot. I actually mumbled all the time. And there was something about finding fencing that really, just the sport itself really had a huge impact on my life.
How did fencing teach you to stop mumbling? Because there's not really a direct connection in my brain with those two things.
So I tell this story. So last week I was actually out doing a clinic, and when I arrived, I was out in California, and a bunch of the fencers at the local club came to pick me up, and there was it was a girl that was there on the team at the club, and when I met her, she was like completely closed off, completely hunched off, totally shy. Didn't say a word to me that whole time when they were picking me up at the airport. Then we got on the fencing strip. All of a sudden, she perked up. She was talking trash to me. It's a high school girl, and I'm like, there's something about fencing. You put on the mask and you're doing this sport, and I think it gives you a lot of confidence. And that's what I want to try to do for kids around the country is that same impact that the sport had for me. What I just saw last week. It's something about, I think, fencing, but also sports and just finding things you love. You start to gain confidence in one thing, and it really starts to translate all over.
So in 2011, Tim started fencing in the schools, which is, why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so we have a motto, turn the light on. So basically in fencing, in order to score, you have to turn the light on. Fencing was really the sport that did that for me to really understand my potential. And as I was finishing the London Games, I realized, I did have an underdog story, but at the same time, I was very fortunate to have a lot of great coaches and a lot of advantages as well. I was actually teaching with Teach for America for a while I was training, and I saw there are a lot of kids that would never even have a chance to fence. And I thought, how do I make sure that every kid has an opportunity to try fencing and to experience more things? And it really came together. I love the Olympics. I love the sport of fencing, and I love education. I've been a teacher, and I want to try to bring those things together. So we're just finishing our second full year. We've introduced 15,000 kids to fencing, and it's not just about the sport. It's how do we teach kids the foundational life skills? Because I think at the end of the day, when you're an Olympian, you have to build to be an Olympian. You have a coach or people that help put you together and lay a strong foundation. And I hope we can contribute to kids across the country using fencing as that vehicle.
That's phenomenal. One of the things that I think is great about you and connecting to kids is that you're very relatable. You had this story where you just started and worked and worked and worked and built up. Do you want to share the story of what you did when you found out you won a silver medal at the Olympics in Beijing?
So I have some funny. So this is on online as well. So no one ever thought I was going to make the Olympics, let alone win a medal. We hadn't won a medal since 1948 in our event. And when my teammate Keith Spart scored the final point, I started to run towards him, and I actually fainted while I was running towards him. This is probably the first time I was ever on TV around the world, and I passed out running. And actually, you can see in the video, I actually reach my teammates, and we're all in the huddle together. They break away, and I just go straight down to the floor. And then, the cameras pan on me. And that was my, big TV moment at the Olympics, completely passed out. See, that's not in the Chase commercial, in that part. My teammates thought that I was celebrating by laying on the floor. And they actually jumped on top of me. And that was, probably the most embarrassing Olympic story, I think, of Beijing.
Well, it was a great combination of the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat, right? Because it's so thrilling, but then...
This is a great comparison between Sarah and myself, because when Sarah won the gold, she has this iconic, pure joy moment that everyone in the world remembers. And then when I won a silver medal, I passed out on the floor. So I think that sums up the two of us as well.
You were a little older, so you might have realized the impact of it a little more. So in 2008, it was your second Olympics, and I think by then you probably realized also a little more of the impact that your fencing can have on New York and the United States and all of the people that you knew. Because I met you in 2004 in Athens at the Summer Games, and I'm watching some of the previews for 2008, and I see suddenly you're doing a lot of, day in the life of Tim Morehouse, what it takes to be an Olympic fencer. And they show you waking up in the morning and training and doing all of these things. No, because a lot of times when you're an athlete training to be in the Olympics, you're so focused on the goal and you have blinders on, and you really limit the amount of press or promotion you're doing, but you realize the impact then. I mean, what was your mindset going in then? Because it kind of translates to also what you're doing now with fencing in the schools, and with the Chase commercial, which is sharing what it takes to go to the Olympics, but then the impact of sport on your life. Those are two separate questions.
Good.
Yes.
Got you.
Okay. So the first one is, when did you realize the power that you had to reach other people through what you were doing?
Well, I think first thing was people had always told us the reason fencing wasn't popular was because we weren't winning Olympic medals. So then Athens, we won 2 Olympic medals. In Beijing, we had this breakout we won 6 medals. And sort of this moment that everyone was going to start just fencing in the streets because we were winning medals, just didn't happen. And I started to realize, look, there's a business and there's a machine that has to be built around it. So, there are a lot of athlete stories sometimes you don't even hear about that are incredible, even just some of them just to make the games. And I realized, I think fencing, we have some of the best role models of the Olympic athletes. A lot of our athletes, they're going to school at the same time as they're training. They're not doing it to make a ton of money. They're doing it because it's something they love. And I thought, how can I help contribute to get the sport out there? The first thing, especially in fencing, is just raising awareness. People know that basketball and football and baseball, that these sports exist. In a lot of places, you say fencing, and they're still looking at you like it's a fence, or they're like Zorro or something like that. They've never seen the sport. So it's been a concerted effort to try to get it out there. And then after Beijing, I came back and spoke at a lot of schools, and I didn't realize how excited the kids would get by fencing. Now we do, like when we do assemblies around the country, the kids are like literally bouncing out of their seats and super excited to fence. And so I realized, we actually have a sport that kids really love. If we can help them know that it's out there, and then now with fencing in the schools, like give them the actual experience of fencing and try to teach them something through it. So it's been an interesting journey that I think we're just starting out on.
So you partner with schools and then provide them with curriculum and train their gym teachers. How exactly does it work?
Yeah, so we have programs as far away as Idaho, and one of the things I realized with fencing right now, we have a very limited number of coaching. So I realized if we were going to try to impact lives and also really scale that impact, that we were going to have to be in the business of training coaches. And so it's been really fun for us. We've been working with a lot of PE teachers around the country. Budgets are getting cut in a lot of PE programs. There's not a lot of professional development for PE teachers. A lot of the ones we work with, it's the first time they're getting professional development. And I remember we walked into a gym one day, it was like 10 PE teachers, and they were like, "We're getting professional development?" We're like, "Yes, you guys are." Like, we really respect the PE teachers. We think that sports can contribute a lot to schools and to kids, and so we've had fun. We've trained over 100 PE teachers now, and I think we're just constantly thinking, how do we help train them to teach fencing? How do we help them to teach character skills as well? And we're just getting started, but it's been really fun, and they've been really enthusiastic. And most of these PE teachers have never learned fencing or taught fencing before, and it's their first experience with it.
So you've been learning a lot about training teachers. Is there something that you found that you can do with training teachers that's going to impact the sport, or potentially like new technologies?
One of the things that I think Olympians do well is we always try to figure out what's the most important thing for me to work on. So obviously, there's goal setting and there's hard work, but then there's also, how do I focus and figure out what are the most important aspects that'll have the biggest impact? And I think that's ultimately what separates, who makes it and who doesn't from those who are working hard. So one of the things we've realized with fencing is that the technology in fencing is actually very archaic. The system we use now was created in the 30s. So the original rules of fencing, first blood. Then our rules were visual. People had to look and see that you were hitting.
Why didn't you explain first blood?
First blood, so
that sounds
if you insulted me, I would challenge you to a duel on this stage. Okay. And whoever drew first blood, the idea wasn't to kill the person, although a lot of people died because of medicine. The idea was just to prove that you were right in an argument. So that was sort of kings and nobility, where fencing started. Then we had this whole concept of just people would visually do the scoring. Then we have now this sort of light system, red and green if you hit. But it's not very smart. Basically, I always tell people fencing is sort of using rotary phone technology when iPhones exist. So we've been fortunate. I've been able to work with IDEO, who helped Steve Jobs invent the first Apple mouse. And I don't know if we have that picture of the cost of fencing, but around two people fencing, there is thousands of dollars worth of equipment. Yeah, so if you go to the next picture, I guess, yeah, I brought diagrams and everything. That's not even the equipment of the two people who are fencing. So the strip can be $3,000 to $5,000. You have things that are just pulling in, a reel back and forth, a wire back and forth. Each of those are $600. So our goal, and this is actually, I have a next picture, has never been sort of shown before, is to move all the electronics onto the athletes. So you're watching the fencers.
This is an exclusive
this
unveiling.
This picture has never been seen before.
Been seen.
This is the future of fencing you're looking at. So the electronics, the scoring system on the athletes, and it's not just our goal to remove all the external equipment, it's our goal to make the sport smarter. So to do scoring, to have data. We're going to start unveiling new school equipment that actually we're going to be able to detect the number of lunges the kids are making. And, while you're looking at this, just envision how exciting I think this will be for kids, because I don't know why, but lights are pretty cool in and of themselves. So the athlete lighting up, but also a lot of information. Right now when you watch fencing, this is very technical, but you have to watch two people fencing, then you have to look at a separate light, and then you have to look at a referee somewhere else. So even in regards to understanding it, we're hoping you'll just be literally watching two athletes. Fencers are amazing athletes, the way they move. It's very similar to dance or ballet, super great, not myself, but most of the other Olympians, super graceful. And I would just want to help bring technology that will bring us back to our roots a little bit, the beauty and elegance of the sport and the simplification, because a lot of the wires and stuff really take away from what it could be understanding-wise and even just how it looks.
So this can transform really the sport on a global level.
I mean, that's the idea. I think this could reduce the cost of fencing in half. And so, in thinking about what big impact we can have, if we can cut the cost of sport in half, that already makes more people be able to afford it. If we can make it easier to maintain, that allows people to continue going longer. If we can make it more exciting to watch, we can have more fencing on TV and have people tune in. We actually have an intern at the office right now who's helping us put all these kind of video gamifying a couple of fencing matches. We're just adding in cool graphics and sound effects and just trying to find a way to really capture the imagination of kids and of people. So you'd want to stop when you see it in your Facebook or Instagram feed and watch a cool fencing touch.
Okay, we only have 9 seconds left, so this is my last question, and I waited to the end to ask this. You taught President Obama to fence at the White House. Yeah. Give us a little behind the scenes on that. Did he have his own gear?
So I brought it. He did not have his own gear. It was one of those, I think some of the Chase commercial. I've been so lucky, so fortunate. We were invited to the White House as part of the Chicago 2016 Olympic bid. They asked some athletes to come and bring sports and demo it, and for some reason he was just transfixed by fencing. He came over to us, he was asking us questions, he refereed a point, we got to show him some moves, and it was really a tremendous, just surreal moment the entire time to be up there teaching him, and that picture also just went around the world. It gets constantly used, by the way, so anytime there's what is it, May the 4th be with you, the White House put out that picture. There was you can petition the White House online. A few years back, someone petitioned to have a Death Star, and they got the votes, so technically the White House has to respond, so they responded with that picture about why a Death Star wasn't economically valuable. So it's been, hopefully it's similar to Chase commercial and stabbing ATM machines, this is what people ask me about all the time. Hopefully it'll just be something that people remember for a long time.
I mean, that was...
This was the hardest part, by the way, was the stabbing the ATM machine with the saber. Or that's me depositing a check, but... That part is easy. Doing it with a saber is difficult.
Okay, now we're going to go to some Q&A. I'm sure there are a lot of questions now.
And I have my staff members planted with questions as well, in case there aren't.
I have a lot more I can ask if you guys can't think of any.
Oh.
Hello. I had a question. You said your team won 6 medals at Beijing, was it?
Yes.
Are there different events? What are they? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so fencing, there's 3 disciplines, foil, épée, and saber. Each of them has its own little unique history. So saber was based on the cavalry sword. The idea was to hit the rider, not the horse, so the target area is the upper body. That's this closest to Zorro. We hit with the sides of the blade. Foil was the practice weapon, and you could just hit the chest and the back with the tip. And then épée was the dueling weapon, so the target area is from the foot to the head. So there's men and women's in both of those disciplines. So in Beijing, Marielle Zagunis won the gold. We took gold, silver, and bronze in the women's, and then the women's foil team took a silver, and we took a silver as well.
Hi, Tim.
How are you? And she's not a plant, by the way. The first 2 questions, not plants.
I just want to tell you, I studied, I won't say where, at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. They teach fencing, and I'll be the first, I have no coordination whatsoever, and they're like, you might not want to do ballet, but they suggested fencing. So yes, I learned to fence at 35. Cool. Have you ever thought of maybe introducing it to gyms? Is that something?
Yeah, definitely. Whenever I go to gyms and I see boxing gloves and stuff, I think part of getting it in gyms is going to be this technology piece as well, is just really simplifying it down to the few core pieces of equipment that you're going to need. You're always going to need a mask. You're always going to need a protective jacket and obviously a foil, épée, or saber. But I think if we can simplify it down and just put the electronics on it, that we can definitely get it into more gyms. But I think that's all those touch points where we can reach more people, even if it's adults just doing it for fun or fitness. I think that's great.
Hi. I noticed you had a cord that's tethered to something.
Yes.
What is the purpose of that?
Yes. So right now, and that goes back to the electronics of what we're trying to remove. If you go back to that, if you go back to that last picture, but basically everything's plugged in because the electronics are based on a circuit. So when I'm fencing, I'll pretend my mic is a saber. I'm plugged in here. I have a wire running through me that runs out the back to a reel, that runs to a machine, that runs to another reel, that would run back and then through her cord into here. So all of those are things that can break, that can pop all, like plugs can pop out. So that's really, and that's, again, a confusion point. Sometimes people think we're tethered, and it's like we're going forward, and there's like something pulling us back. It doesn't do that. But I think all those things are the things that we should have gotten rid of like 10 years ago. Because when I tell people we're removing wires in fencing, they're sort of like, haven't you guys done that already? And it's like, no, we're still working on that. But yeah, so it's just a part of the technology. Everything's plugged in. Just imagine, like, again, you still had to have your phone physically plugged into the wall to a cord. Like, that's basically the technology we're still using with this beautiful sport.
This question is from Periscope.
Awesome. I was about to ask if that was for Hello Periscope.
And they would like to know, has anybody ever gotten, like, seriously hurt while fencing?
Great question. So back when Kings and Nobility dueled to first blood, there was a lot of people dying. Now it's a very safe sport. They're really rigid safety standards. So there hasn't been an accident in decades. There's actually a safety study that fencing is underneath curling in regards to safety. So it goes curling and fencing. We get this question a lot from schools, and we always send them that study. Because, like, if you go, fencing's safer than curling. So no one gets stabbed, no one's bleeding, the outfits are really safe, the weapons are not sharp.
My weapons are sharp.
You look disappointed, though.
skates.
He's so disappointed. This guy was killed just last week at my club.
I've done curling. I'm just trying to figure out how fencing's safe.
You're going to have to ask the scientists on that one.
Sorry.
I don't know either. I just like saying it. It sounds really cool.
Ask the
The
scientist.
safety the safety study.
Oh, yes.
I mean, I think it's because it is a controlled motion. So when you're fencing, you're moving back and forth. I actually have no idea. How could fencing be safer than curling? I don't know. There must be, maybe people pull their hamstrings when they're gliding the thing down. I don't know. I'm sure the curlers would want to know that they're like a tough sport too, so.
Hi, thanks so much for coming. What are your favorite sports besides your professions?
Well, figure skating is definitely one of my favorites.
I think
What
Tim
is your
should-
favorite sport
I
besides
think
figure
Tim
skating?
should share a story about him doing fencing on the ice. He entered a skating competition. It was like a fundraiser for charity, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a lot of embarrassing stories. That could be a whole other show.
And I went to practice one morning, and I see Tim on the ice trying to do fencing moves.
I lost the competition.
Oh,
Yeah, so there was a charity event. They asked if I would do like figure skating. They paired me with like a professional figure skater. I actually did manage to do somewhat of a lunge across the ice, which I thought was cool. I never learned to break. I like learned to skate when I was a kid, but not to break. So half of my routine was me like going and then just continuing to glide until I hit a wall and then coming back. But I love basketball. That's like my second favorite passion. I'll be watching the game tonight. I grew up playing baseball as well in New York City, being a Yankees fan. So I'm Yankees, Knicks, Giants, all the way, New York fan. So, Sarah, your favorite sports after figure skating and fencing? They wanted to know.
I really need to learn how to fence a little better, but I'll tell you, one of my nieces, she doesn't really like activities, so we're always trying to introduce her to sports. So when she saw Tim's Chase commercial where he stabs the ATM and money comes out, she thought, you know what? And it's also like, it's kind of cool, like when you hear about fencing. And she's a science-minded kid. So what we were all surprised was how much agility was in fencing. And Tim hosts the Sullivan Awards every year, which is the top amateur athlete in the country. And so I was telling this story. I was giving out the award this year. You were emceeing. And I was telling this story, and I don't remember what happened. And I said, well, we all thought fencing was just so easy, and you got so offended. He really takes like, so
It's
much.
a good workout. Like you are
he
crouching
takes so
the whole
much
time.
pride in his sport, but you know what? They started doing agility with her, and she didn't like it immediately when they started doing all of those things. So
So she's not fencing anymore.
she is still fencing.
She's still fencing. That's
She's
great.
still-
And Sarah's mom is here as well. We love
Yes,
Sarah's mom.
my mom is here.
Right there.
I like a lot of sports.
You don't want to offend anyone. Sarah knows a lot of people as well. She doesn't want to offend anyone.
We have time for one more question.
Hi, I'm studying to become a teacher, and I just feel so passionate about the impact that arts and sports have on kids. So I was just wondering if there's any way that the public can get involved to help your program reach more schools.
You're not even planted. That was amazing. Perfect last question. So first of all, it's amazing that you're going to be a teacher. I think it's the most important profession in the world. I think I learned as much teaching and working with my kids as I did going for the Olympics. And I think if I hadn't been teaching, I don't think I would have been as fulfilled as I was on sort of my Olympic journey as well. But we have with the foundation, fencingintheschools.org, you can just reach out to us on the website, and we can chat with you about getting a program. I think it's a great sport. We're trying to, we actually have schools contacting us every week, and we're trying to grow and raise money and try to fund as many as we can. We have over 50 schools that we've worked with now, and it's been fun. So reach out. When do you start teaching? Is this going to be your first year, or your? I started 2 years. Oh, you start? Awesome. Awesome, fantastic. So I think, our kids really need us. I think, Sarah, one of the reasons I like Sarah as well, we both feel so fortunate for everything we've been given, and we want to see our country be in a better place. We try to contribute, and everything I try to do, I just want to try to help people as well. And so I think our schools and our kids are, hopefully we can help really contribute in a significant way with the sport of fencing, but really with anything. I think kids need to be able to find their passion, whether it's music, whether it's art, whether it's sport, whatever it is. And, if you're in that fight, then I'm in that fight with you. So.
I mean, Tim and I both trained in the U.S. We represented the U.S. We felt the pride of winning Olympic medals for this country, and all the opportunities that we were given and were able to achieve. And look, I mean, your commercial clearly showed how hard it is too. By doing fencing in the schools and a lot of the work that I do with Women's Sports Foundation and then with figure skating around the country, it's not just about one specific sport. It's about teaching these kids and also adults. Adults learn a lot too of skills that they can transfer to other areas of their lives that enrich their lives in ways that you never even expected. I mean, today is the first time I learned that you used to mumble as a kid because you're a professional speaker now. You speak and you give motivational talks and host events and are fantastic.
I still mumble at home. My wife gets upset at me. She's like, how'd you just go on a stage and talk to all those people, and now I can't understand you, like at dinner? So she's watching too. Hi, Mom. Hi, wife. How do we end the show, by the way?
No,
Is there
I
cue?
think, that was the...
Oh,
yeah. Tim, thank you
thank
for joining
you.
us. Thank you for doing it